and out comes Punk. He arrives at the building, walks out to the ring, and just sits in the middle of the ring. OTC chants begin, and he calls Houston a wrestling town and mentions Paul Bosch, which I'm sure Pat McAfee was furiously Googling. And he compares himself to the old timers, and that he asks sometimes, what would Harley Race do? And yes, Harley Race got a what chant from the crowd. He explains how he dreams of those things, but dreams are stories we tell ourselves. The important stuff happens when we're awake. And says how Roman is not here tonight. I got my receipt on him last week, and I didn't need any help from any cousins. I'm glad that Roman hates me because I wouldn't trade my authenticity for approval. And being hated by losers is the price he pays for not being one of them. Wouldn't trade his authenticity for approval.
Are you suggesting he has?
I mean, we are talking about, the guy's name is Punk as he delivers this line sitting on top of a Slim Jim logo. But I mean, nothing comes to mind. He says, I showed up this week and I'm an old man, but I'm not weak. And says, I hate Reigns too. And he knows why Reigns hates him. He says, my tools are self-made and sharpened to a deadly point because of self-belief and sacrifice. Reigns, your weapons are store-bought and plastic. And the reason you're sent to Jimmy Fallon beltless is because you're safe, you're boring, and you're plastic. You're manufactured while I'm dangerous. You go off to film movies and shows and we don't see you. I do the same thing, but I never miss Raw. You just disappear and you puff your chest out like you're The Rock, but at least The Rock is a Hollywood star. But then he corrects himself, was a Hollywood star. And you would have thought this guy just pissed on Dwayne Johnson by this reaction, this crowd. They're like, oh. And he says, this is pro wrestling, not cinema, after he workshopped this with a fan last week. And he calls The Rock Reigns' bloated cousin. What's that insinuating? He says, my cousin isn't on the board of directors, and my dad didn't get me a job here because I sucked at football. You're just a buck-toothed Nepo baby that ate dog food for a weird old man. And that weird old man treated me like a dog and expected me to smile. But I had FU money, so I took that and my dignity, and I went home. And that's why Reigns hates him. Now, he didn't mention the fact that when he did return to WWE, Vince McMahon was in the company when he returned. But nonetheless, water under the bridge. He says Reigns hates him because Punk cannot be controlled. Reigns, you talk about all the manias that you've headlined, but you don't mention that the first 8 sucked. And anyone else who failed like that would have been fired and blackballed. But you can't blackball me, and I can stand on the bridge and blow it up because I can swim. The crowd thought this was a really clever line, and he's just going. He's like, I'm not done yet. Pat McAfee, you piece of shit. He calls him a hillbilly and then brings up ticket sales. Says, well, why don't you call up your agent who, quote, shoehorned you into this business and this show and tell him to lower the ticket prices. And the fans cheer this. He says, I'll never have a guy that kicked a ball for a living tell me how to sell tickets. Go lower the prices so all these families can come see me kick Roman's ass. This was one of the most surreal promos I have heard on a WWE show in a long time. This was just...
Certainly was.
I mean, he had some hell of a lot of zingers in this whole thing. I'm just going to say right out of the gate, this was quite the promo from CM Punk. Mm-hmm. I think it's really gross that we're incorporating Vince McMahon at this stage. Like, I really feel it's just of really poor taste that, I thought it was like last week you have these references to Vince, and then this affidavit comes out just to remind everyone of what we're talking about here. And it just feels as though it
didn't exist.
It's untouchable. Like we can mention Vince, and it's like there's no harm to us, and there's no shame in bringing up Vince anymore, even if it's just to push a promo segment as well. So I'm gonna get that.
Unlike the Cody segment, I mean, this was not a line that celebrated Vince McMahon. Like the Cody Stephanie interaction could be celebrated, and maybe that's why they feel like they have permission to talk
I
or reference
I
Vince.
don't want to see any references to Vince in any kind of promotional way.
Not
at
even the
all.
dog food angle.
Yeah, it's what a memorable segment this was. But
You didn't make him eat it. At
yeah,
least.
this thing went on. This was quite the lengthy promo as well, and got through a Roman Reigns-less date here for Raw.
I mean, deservedly so. There's nothing else more compelling than this on the broadcast. And I would say, like, overall, this entire feud has been filled with like really compelling talking segments. You can argue maybe this was maybe the most memorable one, and because well, this was their attempt at replicating some version of, you know, pipe bomb for CM Punk, and that's a lot tougher to do these days. Number one, because I think there's a lot less. Well, you can argue there was a prior to last week, maybe there was a lot less dissatisfaction with this company, but you're also talking about Phil Brooks at the age of like nearly 50, who has very much, I think, has, in my opinion, lost that sort of feeling of being an actual rebel on the show. He feels very much like, you know, like he's somebody hired to play a rebel for against the show. That said, though, I can strictly appreciate this for the performance, and I thought it was an absolutely brilliant CM Punk performance. So first, let's get this out of the way. Like, even the original Pipe Bomb promo was something that was commissioned that ultimately benefited the show, right? Which this was as well. Like, this had the purpose of building interest to the pay-per-view match, of course. And then it also had the further purpose of doing some level of damage control for the online sentiment that came out of the Pat McAfee segment on Friday. And the third aim of it was to, I'm sure, announce an upcoming sale for these WrestleMania tickets that they were probably going to engage in
CM
anyway.
sale. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, well, certainly. But the way this man was able to sort of like hit all those notes, I thought he did a tremendous job. And I thought he veered towards the line of just like work shoot in a way that, like, I don't think was so misguided nor as like amateur as, let's say, Pat McAfee tried to engage in on Friday, which is very low bar, I understand. But even Cody trying to engage in that sort of level, I thought Punk weave that in, all these references in, even the references to Ari Emanuel in, I thought in a much more sort of like, you know, masterful way than either of those two. So yes, it further puts the promotion under scrutiny for doing things like charging higher prices. But I don't think you're changing anybody's minds at this point, especially after you've already sort of let the cat out of the bag on the Friday promo. Secondly, I also don't know if like Ari Emanuel himself probably minds that much being the bad guy in all of this, because it sort of wipes the stench off of, you know, the actual promotion itself, which is the thing that he wants to save to obviously make as much money for himself as possible. So all of this is really interesting. The fact that we are now openly acknowledging TKO as the bad guy, as the new corporation here that is, you know, coming in and doing shit like throwing Pat McAfee into the mix, raising ticket prices really high. Like, we are fully in on that narrative now.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's just like any kind of follow-up question that you have to try and explain this. It just gets so difficult that if you're positioning TKO as like this heel entity, and Cody is like their guy as well.
You're not supposed to think that. You're
That's
supposed
what
to think
Pat McAfee told us. And that's what any viewer would watch this and see. Like, that's just in front of you.
There are two levels to the Cody promo. One is Pat McAfee. That's storyline. That is the storyline. And the level two is recognizing that Pat McAfee is simply a pawn and a tool and a puppet of TKO and Ari Emanuel, forcing them down our throat. That's what Cody was speaking to. Cody was, again, we're playing with territory that I would not enter. Like, I think it's far more confusing than it absolutely needs to be. But this is similar to, I think, what they hit on with Cody and The Rock for 40, right? The idea that somebody who is not involved in the wrestling, you know, sort of like fan side of things, just fucking up your WrestleMania build. They are, to me, very clearly trying to position TKO and those guys as the bad guys in all of this. And here comes the savior in Paul Levesque. Maybe the audience at this point like sees Paul Levesque as very much the same, but certainly Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, who are trying to speak for the fan that's outraged.
I think your way to try and maneuver this, because like the toothpaste is out of the tube after these promos, is almost to paint like McAfee is like a dated like he is living in the past, and this is a better version is what you have to present. The problem with that is this current version that you want to be selling to your fans, like this is the great product. That's the TKO product. Like today, you want to put your current product over as this is the best wrestling has ever been. And you have an audience that already was somewhat, is pushing back against that argument. But it now you are basically like,
it's terrible.
Healing TK. Like you can't make any sense out of this. All you can do is mitigate.
This is them salvaging. I feel like the Cody promo on Friday and the Punk promo here was them salvaging what is, I think, already a terrible decision that already occurred on Friday.
Well, maybe they'll have to send Roman out next week to explain that 40,000 distributed, but let's compare gate figures, okay? Because we increased by 25%, and just because we're down 19%, there's still a yield that is going to make everybody happy, because we all know
we're going to take a bite of both parts of the apple.
He's the only savior we can have.
Again, what I could really appreciate about all of this, regardless of maybe how somebody might feel about like the direction of these storylines or injecting TKO and Ari Emanuel now into the narrative of these shows, I can really appreciate CM Punk's performance in seeing these, like in his way to command a crowd and seeing the beautiful flow of these words coming out of his mouth. I really feel like we've known him to be, but
they went so hard with this way that it almost necessitates something with Punk and McAfee beyond this promo.
Like Punk and Dwayne. I mean, I'm sure there are all these directions that they could go to, but I don't think they have any concrete plans for any of that. They
went very hard here. It is WrestleMania month at postwrestling.com. Wei Ting and John Pollock go live all WrestleMania week beginning Monday, April the 13th. Sign up for the Post Wrestling Cafe and you will get live shows all week long leading into our coverage that weekend of WrestleMania 42. This month, we're also bringing you reviews of Spring Break 2 from New Orleans in 2018 and a special Patrons Pick edition of Rewind Away. Sign up now at postwrestlingcafe.com, and this month, new subscribers get 50% off for the first month. Head on over to postwrestlingcafe.com.